I'll talk to you is doing okay.
Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. This is our second Google Hangout for the understudy topic. Tonight we're going to discuss Theme 2, Individualism and Collectivism. And I'm sure it's going to be really exciting. And then we may have others joining us, too, as we go along here. All right. Did you guys read the Theme 2 section?
I don't even have the book yet.
I just printed it off.
It's available online.
I know, I'm not printing it out. But I get it free and I get an actual book this weekend.
So, anybody have any initial thoughts?
Should I go look at it?
Nice.
Hold on, I'm going to Google. Let me see.
Here, I'll just start with the end quote. Do the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few?
Say that one more time.
Do the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few?
It's actually a paraphrase. It's not quite the quotation from the original series. The actual quotation is, the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one. Or the one or the few, I think. Yeah, of the one or the few. So,
fun fact, Mike's story must be a Trekkie.
Bird nomenclature is Trekker.
Oh, my bad.
So, I mean, that's a pretty hefty statement with which to begin the conversation, it's a combination of determinism versus individualism versus collectivism versus a whole host of themes that tie back to how the world works. But so the classic ethical dilemma is, if you can save a group of individuals or a group of people, the greater good, essentially, you do more good by harming or letting harm come to one or a few people. Does that outweigh the negative that you've done? And so, are your actions in the right? And that's the question that we're kind of looking at, the underlying theme behind individualism versus collectivism. As individuals, we all have aspirations and goals and driving forces, and collectively as societies, whether that's small communities or on a worldwide scale, those goals may vary, and those priorities might not align with the individual goals. So how do those goals vary, and why, and where do we go in terms of how the world works? I think is the underlying theme, or the underlying concept behind Theme 2.
I would say that's correct. I think that, I mean, whenever I first thought this, or read through this, one of my first thoughts was, I think everybody, because human nature is just that everyone is selfish. Everyone probably first thinks of themselves. And so I think that it's especially showing now in today's society with, I mean, everything is about me, everything is about now, what can I do for me now? And it shows, and it's not pretty, really. It doesn't make it just makes everything difficult because you can't work together on any level.
So people are selfish. I think that's there's a certain biological imperative to that, to the continuation of the species. But so is that something that we're born with, and then it grows and develops as the nurture side of things, or is that we're all inherently selfish? What do you think, Christina?
I think we're inherently selfish. And I think that the society feeds that nowadays. I don't think it always was like that, but now society feeds that and it makes it grow. And now it's just ugly.
Right. Well, so I think what the theme is asking us is that necessarily bad? Is that a detriment to the world or the societies that we live in? Individual selfishness, individual priorities taking precedence over the collectiveness, or do those individual priorities ultimately end up benefiting society down the road? So if I look to improve my stature in life and I create a business, but I'm doing that for selfish reasons in order to improve my stature down the road, am I helping society by creating jobs and boosting the economy and providing a product or a service or whatever it is? So So is that a bad thing necessarily?
I think there's different levels of selfishness. I mean, yeah, we're born. We when we're babies and infants, everything it revolves around us. What we need to be fed. We need to be clothed. We get coddled. So yes, it comes naturally. But then as you go, even if for somebody who is completely about nonprofits, they're just givers. It makes them feel good. And as much as that person isn't selfish, at the end of the day, it's still about how it makes them feel. So, and I don't think that that's bad. So I think it just depends on where that person takes it. It's okay to feel good about what you're doing, even though, you know, it is it's hard to avoid it. It just is, because it comes back to how we feel. We want to do better. So, and then comes the recognition. And some people don't care for the recognition. They don't want it. But then they still might mention, oh well, yeah, you know, I'm not big in recognition, but I did get an award. There's just something always comes back to our personal needs, even though we're using them for others. I just feel like you can't avoid it. But then, as Christina mentioned, it grows, and it's like, you know, how is it being fed? Is it being fed for someone who is just going to be selfish in a way to where it makes them feel good, or are they going to expect things back and expect it quickly? And I think it's like a fork in the road. Which way are you going to take your selfishness?
So, bringing it back to the honor study topic, Debbie, you would be of the mindset that the way the world works is we all have our individual priorities, and those priorities take precedence.
Right.
Call it selfishness, over our desire to do good for the group, the collective group. You know, some have hypothesized that there is no such thing as a truly altruistic act, that the act itself provides us the sense of accomplishment or feeling or feeling good about ourselves for doing something to help others, and that in that sense we aren't doing it for someone else, we're doing it for ourselves. What do you guys think, how that reflects on the way society looks at it? Okay, well, I would say that I have not come to a conclusion about that. There's been some interesting research into that topic, but so again, but this goes back to the theme and the honor study topic of how the world works. Individual acts or individual priorities to help others. Is that an individual? Is that individualism, or is that collectivism? Are you helping yourself, or are you helping society? Are you helping groups? What are you helping that group? You're helping society. You're helping our global community. Those are some of the things I think this theme is asking us to explore. Are those individual acts, or are those collective acts?
I have a question, and this is like a general question. Does it have to be or?
No, it certainly doesn't.
Okay.
Yeah, the theme is individualism and collectivism.
Right. Okay. Because I think that it's possible to do both. I mean, I do.
It's kind of like Debbie was saying earlier. I mean, you know, you start off doing something selfish, you know, but are you, you know, if you're starting a business, you know, you're probably starting it for yourself, to better yourself, not necessarily thinking, oh, down the road I'm going to employ X amount of people and serve the community or serve whatever. I mean, I don't really know if all people who make those kind of decisions are necessarily thinking about helping others, but in the end, sometimes it does help others. And so I think some individualism can become more collective because you are helping more
And
people.
I think it hurts the fact that.
I think my mic might have been muted.
Yeah, I think it hurts too, because I'll do community service. You know, I'm just gonna say, you know, I help serve Super Bowl Sunday to the homeless on Super Bowl or whatever. I do fun things. But what happens when they're in high school? They're applying for all these colleges or jobs. Well, what community service have you done? What have you done for others? And so then it becomes an expectation rather than something that they enjoy doing. So then it's used to get the job. It's used to be recognized. And it's not. I feel like then those are those generations. I don't know when that changed. I guess I don't remember that when I was in high school. I don't know if that's something new. I don't know if you guys remember if that's always been like that, but I guess I've just noticed it recently where it's become more of an expectation, so therefore they're doing it for those reasons, just to get the job, just to get the recognition, and put it on their resume so they can see that, just to collect it, to do for others. Is that something that's just recent, or?
So that's an interesting concept. I think the underlying principle behind looking at applicants who have certain volunteer backgrounds and whatever, I think the idea behind that is collectivism, the idea to help the collective good. But if more applications for jobs, for scholarships, for entrance to colleges have a higher focus and there's more weight put behind those, is that a supplemental thing, or is that now? Are you moving it towards individualism, in that the individual has to do this for their own good, as opposed to, it doesn't fly in the face of collectivism. It still certainly helps our society and helps whatever groups, but the focus kind of shifts back to the person having to do this in order to better themselves, in order to get that application or that job or that scholarship, versus was supposed to be for trying to help people in general.
Right. I think it's just a mixed message.
I could certainly see that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sorry to ask, could you guys hear me before? My mic was muted, I think.
No, we can hear you now, though.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I was just going to list an example similar, so not just on a global scale, but even on a local scale. School uniform seems like a good example. I mean, do you like the uniform that focuses more on the group, or do you like your expression and wearing what you want to wear? As just one example of collectivism versus individualism. Because you don't think about it, but what are you focusing on, yourself or how you look, or do you care just about simply bettering everyone? Not everyone can afford the nicest clothes and everything else.
That's a really great example, and you could even expand on that and bring in uniforms, jobs, military, whatever it is. We talked about Star Trek a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
The original series and the Next Generation, individuals would have uniforms that identified them with certain skills or groups or leadership positions or whatever it is. As they moved more towards later in the series and more towards movies, we saw the trend towards more grays and blacks uniform across the entire ship, across the entire Starfleet, kind of going towards the route of militarization of the uniform, so that it's more of a collective group. You're in this, you've signed up as part of a group, and your individualism is less important than what you do for the group. So that's the military side of things, but that also applies to jobs. Uniforms are a way to help you identify with that particular group, help you identify with your job, and so it's asking you, sometimes you put the benefit of the company or whatever organization above your own personal benefits. And do you have to do that, or can they work hand in hand? Can they go together?
Yeah.
And then, and taking that and twisting it around, it made me think of this whole, my daughter, I don't remember if my daughter went through this, where you get a trophy no matter what. So we don't want to raise a selfish society. However, at the end of the day, we still want them to strive and to be better. So are we taking away that chance of trying to better themselves? So I don't know. I feel like it's like we're darned if we do and we're darned if we don't.
Well, and one of the things that chapters can explore is how does this idea of asking young people, even younger than our age, college age, high school, below that, Debbie, you kind of mentioned it when it comes to trophies, sports, asking those young people, how does that affect them down the road in terms of playing group sports versus playing individual sports?
Yeah,
Badminton versus playing soccer. Does that affect their sense of how they view the world down the road as they get older? Do they stay more in line with that, or does it not matter? That'd be interesting for a chapter to explore that concept.
Here's
it's kind of.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say teamwork and so forth involves coming together to form a better group with team sports, whereas, as he said, individuals focusing like on badminton or whatever, that they don't really foster that group dynamic. So trophies for everyone may not necessarily be the best solution to foster teamwork.
Right. Well, and it's funny because here's an example, and we laugh about it now, but my daughter, she coaches lacrosse for high school. And when we lived in New York, you started lacrosse little like you do in St. Louis soccer. I mean, it's the sport. And all she remembers is, I mean, she was taught how to play, but the one thing that they would hear is give the ball to Bree. It was this girl on this team, Bria. You give Bria the ball, the team's gonna win. That's how you played lacrosse. You give the ball to Bria, and they didn't care. You know, Courtney was like, okay. And of course now Bria plays for the WNBA. But my daughter's now coaching, and so that I think that's when we can't. And I'm bringing this up because I feel like so many times parents or society leave it up to the coaches, leave it up to the teachers to teach this. Well, my daughter could have easily said, well, this is stupid. Why am I playing? I don't get any recognition. But she knew that it's how you raise your children to take that. And now she continues. She played for like 6 or 7 years. She loves the sport, and now she's coaching it on a high school level. So I think we can't expect society to make to give and take and cater to each family and cater to each child all the time. I think it's up to that. This is where the parents need to teach them how to relate to how society changes. But at the end of the day, how is that individual child being molded to accept teamwork and know when to take credit? And we don't. For some reason, it's black or white. It's never gray. And I think that's another huge issue, is these kids are so confused. Well, do I want the recognition or do I want the team to win? Well, you've got the parents on the side, no, the team needs to win. And then you've got the other parent saying, why isn't my child, and we're confusing them.
Well, and yet, as a society, despite the concept of teamwork and sports promote teamwork and leadership and on and on and on, we reward individual achievements through awards themselves, but also through financial gain, athletic scholarships and financial, huge financial, big salaries for superstars.
Yeah.
But is that the right thing for us to do as society? I mean, there's certain, that's free market economics and all that, but does somebody who achieves a little bit on a team sport, do they deserve X amount more than the guy who's blocking for, basically? And how does that? I mean, we say it's for the collective good. The goal is to get the team to win, but if we're rewarding individual efforts in the meantime.
Yeah. It is kind of a confusing message for people, I think, in general.
Now I'm confused.
Well, kind of one thing that I was thinking about, going back to even just the basic school uniform. I mean, something to explore maybe would be to look at how people coming out of a uniform or school where they have to wear a uniform, how does that affect them later in life? Are they more individualistic now and selfish because they didn't really get to have that expressive time? Or, have they learned about being part of a group and what the value is in that? And
that would be really cool to follow students. I mean, that's not just like a 1 year, thing for Hallmark, but that would be really cool to pick students and you follow them, to see like maybe out of middle school or high school and then into college. And when they go into college, and guess what? You get to wear what you want now. That would be really cool to follow that.
And what kind of effect? Because I mean, there's lots of people that debate, whether school uniforms are right or wrong, or good, bad, whatever. But what is the kind of the effect after that? Or maybe there is research out there about that. I don't know.
Well, there's a Simpsons episode in season 7 where the students are forced to wear school uniforms, and by the time they're all wearing them, they all fall in line and have lost their personalities and their individualism completely. And it's only when the rain washes away the gray and they get their colors again do their personalities go forth. So it's an interesting assessment.
And I'm just going to make the statement because it really doesn't go with the honor study topic. But then you know, they feel like you said they're losing their personalities, but it would help that if they didn't take art out, if they didn't take music out, if they didn't take all these creative classes. I just had to bring that up. That uniform or not, they're sucking the creativity out of the kids anyway. I mean, they don't even know how to write in cursive to be creative. I mean, they're just sucking that out of them anyway. So why not just...
Isn't that the way the world works nowadays? That do we need the collective good? Do we need to teach? Do we need to spend time and resources teaching kids how to learn cursive when at most they're going to be using cursive to sign their name and write a few essays in middle school?
I think it's just to be able to read our history, our historical documents. I had a friend where the grandparents sent Christmas cards and they couldn't read them. Is it going to be a continuous thing? Absolutely not. But it's you know, we strive on our. I think it's just part of the history thing, and being able to read a historical document and be able to read a letter from someone who's elder who has written. That's what it comes down to. Otherwise, no. If it wasn't for that, then no, I would see no point.
Well, and my point was not less about the actual specific topic of cursive writing, but taking things out of the curricula that no longer apply within the world. Are we robbing them of their individualism in order to mold them more for the collective good? Or does that help with individualism? I don't have the answer to that, but I think that's certainly worth exploring.
Yeah, well, and also I think it could be the fact that that's what is changing the world. It's the curriculum that's deciding what these kids are going to learn, and so therefore that's what's making the world what it is. They have control over what, you know. That's why the world, I feel, is changing. I mean, we go, like, just to keep it on this honor study topic, you know, because it's hard. It's hard because you can go on tangents, but just that individual, you know. Maybe that would be cool if they had a class where all these things that they're taking out, to take that individualism out of them, that had an offer like you know, an extracurricular class, you know, an elective, something to allow them to be part of that. I don't know. So I'm sorry, I don't mean to, because that's not the topic.
No, but I see where you got there and where you're going with that. Now, are we, by taking away certain things? I mean, we would say mostly artistic expression is an individual expression. Most art is individual in that regard. Yes, obviously within a symphony you've got an entire group playing together, but your individual performance is noted with a symphony. So if we take away those things, are we turning our kids into good little collectivists? You know, mindless, I don't want to say mindless, but are they losing their individualism to the point that they just don't question authority anymore, and they go along with what's ever told? And I would say that is a negative for society as a whole, but certain leaders and governments and that kind of thing might think of that as better for the collective good. That's certainly the way it works in some societies and in certain governments. I would say the United States our society is built on the antithesis of that, and that we should continue to reward individualism and individual effort.
Mm-hmm. In hopes that those individual efforts do benefit everyone.
Exactly. Nicole, you've been rather silent. Any? We kind of didn't say hi to Nicole when she came in, so hi, Nicole.
Hi, Nicole.
Hi, Nicole. I'm Debbie.
Hi. I kind of stuck in on ya.
What are your thoughts, Nicole? just in general of the theme and how it relates to the honor study topic.
Well, I think both individualism and collectivism are both good in one way and bad in another way, like you guys have been discussing. I mean, like Debbie was saying with volunteering, I do a lot of volunteer work with Special Olympics, and yes, I'm giving to the athletes, but they're also giving back to me. So that's a win-win situation.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
And it should be acceptable for her to get that back. That should be okay.
Absolutely. So one of the things that the theme talks on in the honor study topic is the Occupy Wall Street movement and how it challenged to focus on individualism, specifically within capitalist societies and governments and economics and in the United States, and push for collectivism, more on the social side of economics. Basically questioning the predominant economic forces within the country for the last 120 years. And part of that is that movement, is that really an individual movement or is that a collective movement? Are we trying to get it more towards collectivism, but then it benefits the individual? So what do you guys think about that? Somebody has some thoughts.
I live under a rock, and I don't really remember what all that was about. I'm just going to put that out there. So somebody else has to talk.
They didn't really have a leader, which was kind of interesting. If I remember right, they held group sessions, and they used microphones. I mean, like bullhorns or something. I don't remember what it was. So megaphones.
That's interesting, Kyle. You're right. There was no
leaders. It was all group.
Yeah, of the group. But they're still lobbying for a collective right, more economic benefits. Where we go back to the 60s, Dr. Martin Luther King, the clear leader of the civil rights movement, lobbying for a collective right of the right to vote for African Americans in the South, or at least the right to express the right to vote. So has society changed? Has the world changed now where we put less emphasis on the individual within these movements because it's more about the collective good?
At the same time, that movement, as I said, didn't really have a leader, but also really didn't give it focus without a leader. So yes, it was all about the collective, but at the same time, it couldn't narrow its perspective, which is possibly one of the things that hurt the movement. Whereas you said with Martin Luther King, or Mr. King, that it had a leader, it could focus on that leader, and it could move forward from that leader. Without the leader or any guidance, it fell kind of apart to some extent.
That's interesting. Without an individual or a few individuals kind of leading the charge, the movement itself failed to gain a whole lot of ground to change the system. And we haven't seen a whole lot of change with that Occupy Wall Street movement. So that's an interesting concept, Kyle. I didn't consider that. So an individual,
sort of a focal point.
Yeah, can affect the way the collective works, the way that group works, or the way that they're perceived, or the kind of traction they get.
Because when the news cameras went into the Occupy, they were asking a bunch of random people, and each time they got some random answer. There was no clear, defined objective within the group, and that was one of the biggest commentators against them, is that they couldn't get a defined or definitive answer. Whereas with Mr. King, they always had somewhat of a guidance, somewhat what they wanted, direction in some way.
Yeah. At the same time, Malcolm X was an individual who was working towards the same goal, but had very different methods. So individual efforts and collective efforts can have different outcomes and different processes and outcomes based on the individuals that are leading them.
Yeah.
So for those who don't remember, the Occupy Wall Street movement was a protest movement that started in 2011, Kyle? Is that it?
I don't remember. I remember I had to do a paper on it. I think 2011 sounds about right.
Yeah. Mostly focused in the financial district in New York City.
I remember they had all sorts of interesting events like zombie walks and so forth. And it was basically they occupied the region. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's essentially the purpose was to protest against what they considered social and economic inequality worldwide, directed towards the quote-unquote 1%ers, those 1% who held 50% of the wealth worldwide. Greed, corruption, undue influence of corporations on government, et cetera, et cetera. So petitioning certainly for a collective movement to help benefit society as a whole. That said, did that movement and did the desire for a more collectivist society, a more social society, does that in the end, would that hurt? Would that benefit or would that hurt us? I mean, are we? That's an interesting question. What do you guys think? How would that affect us down the road?
Depends on who you ask. Are you in the 1%?
I'm asking you guys.
It also depends. If it was that simple of an answer, we would already have a decision. That's a question that can't easily be answered. It's based on
That's why I'm
perspective.
asking for your opinions.
I don't think it really. I think no matter what, some people are going to have some sway. I think to truly go totally collective is an option that really isn't possible, because even and then there are going to be people that are going to rise possibly to lead. And I think the notion of pure collective isn't essentially there yet. I don't know if it ever will really be there. People have that innate desire.
Wasn't part of that whole time, because I vaguely remember it, I mean, wasn't part of that the fact that there's starting to be such a large gap between the 1% and everybody else? Yeah. And if we're doing away with the middle class, there's ramifications of that being from going away. And so in that sense, yeah, I mean, you want a little more equality because you need that middle class.
Or is the middle class simply a result of the current economic system?
I think it's a combination of both, and I don't know. I mean, that would be an interesting research, because I feel that some people, it's by choice. They're comfortable with the way their lifestyle. Some people actually that might I guess we judge people by the house that they're in, the car they're in, and so we automatically put them in a category of upper class. But then you've got some middle class people. What we consider middle class based on the house that they live in and the car that they are, when really they have more money than we maybe even know. So that's really by financial. They might consider themselves middle class because that's what they're comfortable in. I think there's some people that are homeless that have been given opportunities. They want to stay there because it's by choice. Some of it is not. So I'm not saying I don't know what the answers would be. I don't know, but that would be an interesting research, because I think it would be both. But I'm wondering which one weighs heavier over the other. By what we're taught, how we're brought up. It's just by choice.
I just want to say one thing as we get on all this economics and so forth. We are worse than Wikipedia. Do not quote us. I just want to bring that up. Sorry, as we're getting on all this subject matter. So do not reference us.
I don't think Wikipedia is such a bad source. It aggregates. I understand. Oh, that's an interesting. You know what, Kyle? That's interesting, and let's talk about that. So Wikipedia itself is a collective movement, right? Anybody can go online and add information, 2 pages, create pages, and what it is. So is that necessarily a negative thing? Now, most educators will say Wikipedia is the devil, blah, blah, blah. It's so bad, on and on and on, which I think is total malarkey. Okay, I think as a collective group, as a social movement, we can aggregate the best information possible and provide in a succinct form, such as Wikipedia. I guarantee you there's a ton of people using Wikipedia for research papers, and what they're doing, and I'm not advocating this, is they're just taking stuff from Wikipedia and citing the sources at the bottom of the page. Okay? If you're doing that anyway, I don't see why you can't. What's that? I'm not saying it's right or wrong.
I'm school, but I'm like, man, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
At least verifying, though, that's the problem. People aren't always verifying.
I don't think Wikipedia, as a social movement, as a collective movement, is as negative as society, some people in society, specific groups, educators would have us believe, because we can, as a group, collectively, we can weed out the bad information and keep the good information. Now, occasionally it'll slip through, but...
That's true, but at the same time, you should at least verify personally.
Well, see, you just said it. Kyle, you just nailed it. It's not Wikipedia. It's not Google. It's not only watching one news channel. It's the... I hate to say the word. It's just the ignorance, because some people just make... I say ignorance because they may not know. Not because they're stupid. Just because not know that, like, if I go to Wikipedia, I'll use Wikipedia to read it to get an understanding, and then I might, okay... Oh, I didn't know that. Well, but I know, because of what I've been taught through education, is to go, now let's look at other things, or look at the sources that are on that Wikipedia. Oh, so by the time I go to 5 sources, oh, so what is on that particular topic on Wikipedia is accurate. It's a great starting point. I Google more than anything. Do I take everything in and say, oh, well, if it's online, it must be true? No, but unfortunately, it's the person that's doing the research. I mean, it's just, I don't know how else to get that out there, to tell people, say, look, do Wikipedia, Google, sit down, but read more than one. And I think that's the issue. I don't think it's Wikipedia by itself. I think it's the people that are reading it.
Well, we're also fortunate to live in a time where we have such a... The internet is such a collective movement where this information is gathered and propagated to the point where you can access many sources very, very quickly. So I think that is the way that the world has gone. I think we're already there. That online, it's more of a collectivist movement than it is an individual movement.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, the internet is also a great way to express oneself personally by creativity, designing products, being video games for one. Started off as much smaller projects. Nowadays they're so big, but some of the early games you can make by yourself and just create, for example, mobile platforms today. It's internet, but at the same time it's very self-expressive in some way. Music and all sorts of things.
It's funny you said that. I had a media law class, and I had to do a project. But anyway, I found this video. I wish I can find it. But it shows way back in the news when the internet came out. And even the talk shows were saying, what's this internet thing? And they were getting the cameramen to tell them what internet was. And they were doing it on the news. And they interviewed people as they were typing on the old Apple green screen saying, I have a way to express myself. I can communicate with others. I can do more. So then, Kyle just made a good point, is it's a way to express yourself. Well, that's not recent. That started a long time ago. So where has it gone? How did it change? I don't know. It's always been that way. We've always wanted to connect with others, and that was the beginning of it. I mean, that was back in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s. That video is from. That was a long time ago.
So that's interesting, Debbie. The desire, the innate desire to connect with others.
Yeah.
You might hear a lot of baby boomers these days talking about, or even Gen Xers talking about how social media is tearing people apart, right? We're on how millennials, and you can argue when millennials start. Some would say that it's 82, 84, whatever it is. But millennials and what are going to be the next generation, they're on their phones too much. They're not talking to each other. They're not present when they're in the group. And I would argue that the internet and social media has allowed for more of a collectivist movement where we are connected with more people than we have been in the past. So I think those connections are present, and society is, especially in developed countries, is moving more towards that.
Yes. I totally agree with all of it. You don't agree? She teaches high school, so she's like,
I think you're right in the sense that yes, we can share ideas, we can be individual, we can do all these great things through social media and the internet and whatever, but we're missing out on the basics, which is a relationship with your kids, a relationship with your parents, a relationship with the people that are physically in your life.
Yeah, I think that started changing before the internet. I think that started changing before social media.
So,
yeah.
Without stating my opinion on that, is that a reflection of society, or is that a reflection of the individuals choosing to behave in a certain way? So what I'm saying is, are people who are engaged in social media more so than what some may consider to be reasonable and losing out on individual personal relationships in person, et cetera, is that because we as a society have moved towards that, more towards that online collective movement, or is that because individuals have decided to make that a priority? So is it a reflection, or is it a direct result?
I don't know. I mean, I remember when my daughter got her phone at 10. Such a bad idea. Because she was texting all the time. But it was because that's what everybody did. Everybody texted, so that's what they texted. So I told her, you know, she wants to go spend the night at a friend's house. She would not call. Only texted. Would not. And to me, I don't know which category that falls into, but to me, from an older generation, that's not okay. Get on the phone and freaking ask for permission.
Nobody wants to call anybody anymore, okay? I don't even like calling people that I like, okay?
My daughter is changing relationships. It's not taking them away, it's just changing them.
Right.
So, like, I have friends that live in New York, and their boys, they use the internet to play video games with other kids. Why? Because they live in a time where they can't go outside and play like we used to. So they have to depend on communicating with other children through the technology. So I think the way the world is now working, I think that the internet, I think it depends on the person. You know, I definitely use it. I mean, I talk to people from all over the world. I would have never done that before with social media, on Instagram and sharing, you know, motivation and all this kind of stuff. But when we didn't have texting, I held up the phone line. I didn't communicate with my mom and my dad. I was on the phone, or I was waiting for that phone to ring, and then if I was on it, nobody else was calling in because I was on there for an hour. So, and I would still get annoyed when I got called to dinner. So that, all it's done is it's just shifted, but the home thing about not talking to each other, that's just been an issue. That's just an issue within each family.
Sure, and I would agree with that. But okay, so what about on a friend level? When we moved,
I don't like my friends, and I don't want them calling me.
when we were down south, my son had friends from school. When we moved up here, he continually played online games with those friends down there and did not make any new friends here because he did not have those personal connections, and that he just didn't want to. Again, they just choose to keep doing what they're doing, and the way society is, and he couldn't find anybody around here that played his games that he played, and so he didn't make any friends here.
Right, and what happens when a child doesn't want to eat their vegetables?
Well, he's 16 and a lot bigger than me, so.
But I'm just, again, I think it's like, I'm okay with my daughter, she has, like, we have an apartment downstairs, texting her from upstairs saying, what are you doing today? I'm okay with that because I'm, you know, and I mean, that's just, but before in houses, they have the intercoms. You know, where you press intercom and say, what do you, it's just, you know, it's just the fact that I think it's new, and the fact that it's fast, people feel threatened by it. They either feel that they can't express themselves individually, or that it's taking away from the group or whatever. but they forget the fact that some of these issues have been around for a really long time.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's within that family. How does that family communicate, and how do they teach them how to be, be your individual self? And we're worried that they're very secluded, being just individual, but in reality, they've got such a more of a bigger world than when we were younger that we could have ever imagined.
Sure. But I just think that there's more. I just think there's more walls up too, because when they change schools, if every kid is on their phone, they're not going to look up long enough. Well, yeah, but they're not going to look up long enough to see new people, and
So bringing it back to the honor study topic, is that necessarily a bad thing, or are we being? Is it more of a collectivist movement whereby you are able to interact and socialize with more people on a greater level? Is it necessarily a bad thing that he hasn't made in-person connections with people that are physically close, yet he still has strong relationships with his group that has spent years developing?
Yeah, I think.
So I'm sorry, Debbie. Go ahead. Okay, I'll go ahead. I think she froze. So we're in a society now where the world is smaller. There are fewer borders. The physical distances aren't as great of a deal because of the technology that we have, and that leads society more towards that collectivist movement. At the same time, we're still rewarding individual achievements and accomplishments. So it's kind of a unique dichotomy in society. We're at a tipping point where technology can go one way and continue to globalize. I mean, what we're talking about basically is globalization, or we can continue on with individual. And is one worse than the other, or is it just different?
That's a very good point, and I really gotta go though. I would love to talk more. I'm sorry.
No problem, Cal. Thanks for joining us.
I'm sorry. I have to get ready for work. Good luck with the conversation.
I mean, to me, I think everything kind of boils down to you need both. I mean, you need to have that individual person that's going to be able to be a Martin Luther King, but you need people that are going to want to do things as a group to make those changes too.
Like Phi Theta Kappa.
So Phi Theta Kappa is a society that rewards individual accomplishment and achievement. You're invited based on your GPA, among other factors. But your group, you're part of a group that works to benefit your school, your community, your state, whatever it is. And at the same time, you're being rewarded for those collective achievements with individual benefits, such as the access to scholarships, which benefit you directly. But again, then you get a scholarship, you have access to education down the road, and you can utilize that education to do better for society. So it's interesting the way that we're going round and round about individualism versus collectivism. But Debbie, I think you hit on it really, really poignantly. Individualism works hand in hand with collectivism, and as we continue as society, I think we're going to see more and more of that. It's just going to evolve the way people are individually and the way that the group is collectively.
I think a big question is when someone is doing anything, whether it's for individual or for the group, is to ask why. Why are you doing it? Do you understand? I brag about Phi Theta Kappa is, when it comes to when they used to do just the service, when they just focused just on service, it wasn't like, oh, let's go plant a tree. Well, here comes Phi Theta Kappa nerds saying, well, what kind of tree is it? Where are we going to plant it? Why are we going to plant it there? Who is it going to benefit? We know to ask those questions. It isn't just like, oh, we planted a tree. Yay, I planted a tree, and it's for the people in this community to enjoy it. It's, we have been think why, and I think that's really important. As she said before, she works with the Special Olympics. I'm sure she knows why. She knows why it's important to her. She knows the benefits of it. She's not doing it just to do it. And I think that makes a huge difference on when we make our decision, when we're going to put them together, individualism and collectivism.
Well, let me play devil's advocate for a second, Debbie. The importance of why. Does the why really matter? If you're benefiting society, does the why you're doing something, whether you're doing that for yourself or you're doing that for the group, if you're volunteering, does it matter why you're volunteering as long as you're accomplishing something?
Well, I see where you're saying it, but you have to know at least, in other words, when I just volunteered to serve for the Super Bowl, for the homeless Super Bowl, I know why. Because they're hungry and they're cold, and it would be nice to be entertained by, I'm a big football fan, and let them watch football. It doesn't have to be a big why. It could just be something to understand what you're doing.
But at the same time, does that matter? Does the why? Do I need to know, or do I need to believe in the why of what I'm doing if it benefits society in the long run?
To feed the individualism, yes. I think so.
Well, I mean, and so that's kind of what I'm getting at. Individually, sure, maybe, but what about work release for prisoners? The stuff they do is akin to volunteer work. They're cleaning up, physically cleaning up society, benefiting society. The why is because it's restitution for something they've done to violate the law in the past.
Well,
so
and it's also them to get back to work ethics and to know that nothing comes for free. So.
But that's individual. What if their mentality is different and it's completely selfish and completely individualistic, and the only reason they're doing it is because they are being forced to?
Oh no, I totally agree. It depends on the person. Mm-hmm. I just personally think it's important. Will everyone care to know why? No. I personally, if you say let's go plant a tree, I'm sorry, I'm not going to just go follow you and say, oh yeah, I planted a tree. Why? So I think that's why I'm just saying I don't believe that everybody thinks that. I'm not saying that they can't benefit society by not asking why. I mean, if they do something that's good for someone else or for a group, then it was good. I mean, no, I don't think that you have to. I just think that it's important in order to feed both. That's just my opinion. Yeah.
I wasn't disagreeing with you. I'm just trying to.
No.
And that's really what I want to see. So it's worth exploring. Is that important? I think, especially for the honor study topic, I think that's worth exploring in that regard. And the way that the world works, does it matter why something is done if it benefits either the individual or the society, and how do those two components work together?
Well, just like, all right, according to medical records, I should only, at my height, and to be, according to doctors, I should weigh this certain amount. And I'm like kicking my butt to lose weight, but I tell myself I need to remember why. Why? Because I want to live longer. Why? Because I want to look better and feel better, and I want to be better than who I am. So I guess that's what, But do we automatically know that? Oh, you should be healthy. I don't know how that helps the society. So I know that like collectivism. But I'm not going to go do it blindly, and I think so many people do things blindly. I mean, look at the media right now with all these groups of people. They think that they're benefiting everyone, but they have no idea why they're there, most of them. It's like the blind leading the blind. They have no purpose. And I think that, I personally feel that hurts. You might think you're doing good, but if you don't understand why you're doing it, does it? I don't know. That might be a question. Does it hurt? Does it help it? Does it matter?
Well, and I think the big question is that something that an individual should be concerned of? My actions as a whole, taken as a whole, how that affects society, is that something that I should be concerned with? Does that affect the way that the world works? There's a concept in economics called positive externalities, where the society as a whole, or some individuals doing something, the consumption of a good or a product, or people getting healthier, whatever it is, has benefits to society as a whole. So a healthier society means less healthcare costs, means lower taxes, means more money that's spent in the economy. So it all trickles down. It's all positive in the end.
But that would be a good like research question. Like take it to the streets. One of those like videotape. Why are you doing this? I don't know. Just
well,
yeah.
I was thinking as you guys were talking that, I'm married to a why guy. My husband will not do something unless there's a why. And so I call him the why guy. And I wonder if those why people are more of the Martin Luther King, leader type people, and then those people that, I volunteer, I do stuff all the time, but I don't necessarily analyze why I'm doing everything I do. So it's because of people like me, probably, that we have a bunch of collective people that just follow the leader. So to me, I think you kind of need both sides of those types of people, too.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of like the top third and the middle third. You got your bottom third with just tag along. If they even show up.
Right.
Sorry. Well, my phone is about to ring from somebody who wants to learn how to use Instagram.
We are closing in on now, so I think that's a good place for us to wrap up. This is a really good theme. I'm really happy with the honor study topic this year, and this theme, I think, really resonates with everyone. We are in a society that individualism is a key component of who we are as a species, and when we consider individual rights, the way that this country was founded, going all the way back beyond the colonists to the Magna Carta and Martin Luther and all that, those are individual benefits. But at the same time, as a collective, as a group, we work together to make society better for everybody. And the way those two play together, individualism and collectivism, really determines where we are right now. So there's a lot of ways that this can go, and I think there's a lot of good honor study topic. I
think it's really good, and this particular thing, it's like, will we ever have the answer to this? No, but I think the important thing is to keep talking about it and discuss it, to recognize that it is important. So I think that was good. I'm so glad you guys invited me. This was really cool.
Well, we would love for you and anyone else in Missouri or the country as a collective join us individually.
Well, I know a lot of them, they're putting programs together right now. I don't go there till Thursday, so that's why I was able to. The whole rest of the team all live in Springfield, Missouri.
Oh, nice.
They all live together.
Well,
I'm an outcast.
Tell them what a great time that you had and all that you learned this weekend.
I've already posted it on social media.
And Nicole, do you want to tell us when our next one is?
The next one is April 25th, and
Yeah.
we'll be discussing theme number 3.
25th.
Fantastic.
We'll see. I do a lot of traveling, and we've got some new shops opening, so it'll.
Okay. Well, this will, as always, these are recorded and they'll be available online. They'll be on our YouTube channel, and we will post on our social media for anybody who wants to reference back. And thank you very much, and thank you, Nicole, to you and your committee for arranging these honor study topic hangouts.
Thank you. Bye.
See ya. Bye.